Joining me now is Dr. Sinan Ciddi, who is a Senior Fellow and Director of the FDD's Turkey Program. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, good to be with you, Brittany. Thank you for having us.
I want to talk today about how you view Turkey's role in President Trump's second term. In the past, the president has had very flattering words for Turkish President Erdogan. He's called him a friend before. He also hosted him for a meeting in the Oval Office last month, and in that meeting, he indicated that he could lift a ban on the sale of US F-35s. That hasn't happened yet, but President Trump didn't completely shut the idea down. So to start off the conversation, how would you characterize this relationship between the United States and Turkey?
It's a complicated relationship. I think Turkey's always had a very complicated relationship with the United States, even before Erdogan and Trump. But I think it's been increasingly strained and even more complicated under Trump, simply because in his first term, it is correct to point out that Turkey was interested in becoming one of the biggest operators of the F-35 program. So Turkey's had a major interest in operating the most sophisticated, most streamlined, most modern US fighter aircraft. And it was part of the production consortium of the F-35. So this was a cat in the bag, so to speak. But this process became derailed, and this is why it's becoming an extremely complicated and tense relationship in the last 6, 7, if not longer years, simply because Turkey's made this very fateful decision to purchase a missile defense system from Russia, which might not seem nefarious, but when it did make that purchase and acquired these Russian missiles back in 2019, Trump was forced to essentially eject Turkey from the F-35 program. So whereas Turkey was going to be in a position to acquire over 100 units of the F-35, became the Middle East's largest operator of the F-35 platform, it found itself in the wilderness. And then, in addition to that, Turkey became the first NATO ally to be sanctioned by the United States, by Congress, for buying Russian missiles. And then what we've seen over time since then, we've had the Biden administration, Turkey's been in this weird position whereby it is the only NATO ally sanctioned by the United States, and in a weird place simply because it needs to modernize its air force, it needs to modernize its military, because we see this growing Russian threat on the footsteps of Europe. We see tensions and military threats escalate in the Middle East. And all the while, everybody's asking the question, well, if we need all hands on deck in terms of allies to prepare for a number of threats in the European theater, in the Middle Eastern theater, why is it the case that NATO's second largest military, one of the oldest members of NATO, is in this weird position where it's had this very strained relationship with the United States? And it's because we have this very strange sort of balancing act between Turkey and Washington, seemingly because Turkey's grown apart between Trump and Erdogan, or apart between Washington over a number of years. And everybody's wondering, is that distance going to grow, or is there any means to essentially patch this divide?